why don't we get started? Thanks for coming. Wow, what a turnout. My name's Rob Goodwin. I'm the fire chief for the Carbondale and Rural Fire Protection District. Some of you who know me, you're going to have to bear with me as I repeat some information. The Carbondale Fire District is about 300 square miles. It runs from north of Carbondale, Missouri Heights, the CMC Spring Valley campus, that kind of stuff, all the way up to Crystal Valley to include Redstone and Marble. So it's kind of a far-flung, wide-reaching fire district. So that's why I'm fire chief here from Carbondale. Like I say, it's the Carbondale Fire District. Thank you for coming. We wanted to talk and just, there are a couple more seats up front here, folks. A couple more over here. We just thought it'd be a good idea to talk to people about the runoff, flooding, any questions you might have, the stuff that we've been looking at and seeing. And I'm going to preface everything by telling you I'm a fire chief and I'm not a water expert. But having said that, we do respond to this stuff. I've been with the Carbondale Fire Department since 1987. So I know, and I've lived here in the Crystal Valley and Carbondale since '77. So I know a little historically about it. Bill Gavette is a deputy chief, and he's been here a long time too, and he knows it. And so hopefully we'll pass on some good info to you. We have Valerie McDonald, the Pickton County Emergency Manager here, and she'll talk to you and give you some good information, and we'll answer some questions. And we have Craig Gunstream from CDOT to talk and answer any questions you might have about highway stuff and things like that. So we tried to gather as many people as we could to give a good kind of broad overview. All right? We've got just a couple of, it won't be death by PowerPoint, but we do have 5 or 6 slides just to give you some info and about snow data, pretty up-to-date stuff, and historical runoff data as well. So just so you can be aware and understand a little better what you're seeing as the water comes up. It's coming up. It's going to keep coming up. That's just a fact. So, Bill, if you want to put that up. First I want to say, Rob Hunker, where are you?
Right here.
Rob was with the Colorado Avalanche Information Center for years and was our avalanche expert for years. And he knows a lot about snowpack and the snow-tell sites, and he helped us with some of this data. So thank you, Rob. Appreciate it. So as you see, let me get out of the way here. Just a little historical data. Excuse me. Just from some of the higher years in recent history, pretty recent history. If you look at the bottom numbers there, start there. Snow-tell site is a site that gets put up on the mountainside, and it measures how much snow and how much snowpack there is throughout the season. So that's what this is measuring. This is the local one in the Crystal Valley. 1995 was a big year, I remember it. That was a big snowpack year. 2011, fairly recently, was a pretty good year. And we were very concerned in 2011. But one of the things that happened in 2011 was the snow belt, snow came off very slowly, right? So you can have monster snow, it comes off pretty slow throughout the season, you don't have a big problem. If it warms up and all the snow really starts coming off at once, the river can rise and you can have a problem or potential problems over a shorter term period. Does that make sense? And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. As you can see, 2019 compares kind of favorably to 2011, and then 2008 was a pretty good year too. As we go up, the CFS number and those upper numbers on the right is cubic feet per second in the Crystal River. There's a gauge down by the Penny Hot Springs. And it measures the cubic feet per second of the river flow. And the peaks in 95 was 33, 40, but you can see in 2011 it was even higher. We had significant flooding in 95. Didn't have it in 2011, though the river got higher at one point. So it's not an exact science, especially for a fire chief. I'm prefacing everything I say. All right. So these are just some numbers, give you some relative data. Bill, could you go to the next slide, please? This is some more, just a graph of it. The triangles you see are over the years, what the mean average flow is, right? The mean flow. We are now, the blue line is this year, and we're approaching the mean for it, meaning it's getting warmer, the water's coming up, and we're approaching what is kind of average runoff for this date in June. All right? This is just a tiny snapshot in one day of a season. So we're getting up to where runoff is happening and getting to what's kind of average. Go ahead, Bill. This is interesting. It's funny. This is the 2011 data where it kind of got high. And you can see this gauge, the squiggly blue lines, jumped way above the mean in late May, mid-late May, and then it broke the snow tell, or the river gauge. That's why you got the gap. And it was broken for a couple of weeks, and then it kicked back on, and kind of stayed high up there a little, and it got to the almost 3,500 cubic feet per second mark back then. So, as you can see, this is not an exact science. You might bear that with, as witness to that. And you just don't know how it's going to happen each year. Go ahead, Bill. Now, here's the important stuff for me. This is a FEMA flood map that we get from FEMA, and talks about floodplain stuff. When we have high water years, the Redstone area and the Crystal Valley have over the years historically have experienced flooding, not historic flooding. Historically, they have experienced localized flooding in certain areas. And this shows you, this here is Coal Creek. Everybody know where Coal Creek is at the south entrance? So this would be the Crystal River, this is the boulevard. Right about this 52, midway down the boulevard, anybody who's lived here for any amount of time knows that that can flood and get some level of water on the boulevard. As we go farther down, closer to that 53, is where right here, the fire station. And just above us, in a high year, it can flood right there, and we'll experience some localized flooding in the street and things like that. And that's what we've experienced over here, sometimes 3 inches, sometimes a little more. We've never had this big catastrophic stuff that I'm aware of, but I'm just telling you historically where this stuff is flooded. Next slide, Bill. Hayes Creek Falls. Everybody knows Hayes Creek is? About mile 49, this is just above Hayes Creek. There's a place where the river comes under the highway, under those culverts, and it kind of eddies and pools there, and it's really close to the highway. That, typically, you can experience localized flooding. And then just about a mile down, again, as we get closer to Redstone, the river comes up kind of close to the highway, and you can get some localized flooding there as well. Does that make sense? These are a couple of spots. Go ahead, Bill. And then finally, down the Crystal, this right here is, you know where the KOA campground is? Right? That's called the Seven Oaks subdivision. That bridge is about right here. So my house is right there. It's up the hill.
Thank you.
KOA campground's right in here. And they have experienced some localized flooding in the parking lots there, things like that over the years. All right? Those are the major points where we know, from a fire department perspective, that we've had any localized flooding in big years. Do you have anything to add to that? No. Okay. I just want to make sure I'm not getting off track.
No.
What was your first name again?
Heather.
Heather here is from the Roaring Fork Conservancy and is a wealth of knowledge and just introduced herself to me, so I might rely on Heather for some of these answers. Thank you.
Rob,
Yes.
we also have the Two Times floodplain manager. Catherine, do you want to raise your hand?
Awesome.
So we do have.
What am I
some
doing, Tom? I will tell you, in '95, the big year, it all kind of came off at once, and we did have, this is just a funny story, at least it's funny now. That bridge at the BRV, the KOA, Bill and I were on the fire department back then, and out in the middle of the night, because from midnight to about 3 a.m. is when the water's the highest, right? Melts all day, water comes up at night. Well, we were out for a week or two checking bridges and all this, and so we're out at like 1:30 in the morning, and we're finally checking the last bridges, and we come down there and we're standing on that bridge, and the water's ripping, but it's dark. You can't see anything. And that bridge is kind of old and looks rickety, but it's got these giant I-beams under it. It's a bomber bridge. Well, we're standing on the bridge going, oh, we don't see any, we're looking for debris building up, you know, on these bridges and all that. We don't see anything. Okay, so Bill starts walking one way to his car. I start walking another way to my car. You know, turn the flashlight from the river off, get on the path, you know, across the bridge. And a tree came down and hit that bridge. And I'll never forget, I turned around and started walking and boom! And this whole bridge starts shaking and I screamed like a schoolgirl. Oh my God. We both turned around and shining flashlights at each other. Did you see? Anyway, I hope that didn't happen this year. So, Carbondale Fire, again, we're a fire department. So when there are any kind of emergency incidents, we'll respond and do whatever we can and do what we do. We have a swiftwater rescue team and we respond to all of those all the time. We also pay attention, as you can probably tell now, to what the rivers are doing so that we can get out good public information. Jenny Cutright back there at the camera is our financial director, but she's also our public information person, and all this info you've been seeing on social media and everything that's got out comes from her. She does a great job, and we will continue to keep trying to put that out. Valerie's going to talk to you about some alert stuff, and I don't want to steal her thunder on that, so I'll be done here in just a second. But so I guess my big thing I want you all to take away is that everything you can do to become aware of what's going on, pick an alert, whatever it is, watching the river in your area, watching the weather, because we can have high water in a couple of weeks and it's maybe not that big a problem, but you know, in Colorado we can have a thunderstorm over a small area that dumps a half an inch of rain in 30 minutes, and then that comes down the wash to the river, and that can be an issue. So my advice is, let's all be aware of our surroundings. We don't have to be afraid, just understand and be aware. If you see the skies darkening, the river's high, pay attention. And Valerie's going to talk about go kits as they relate to this and wildfire and things like that, and just participate in your own safety. There's no government agency here that can come and rescue everyone in 20 minutes. We don't have that many helicopters, firefighters, it's not going to happen. We live in western Colorado. We all have to participate in our own safety. So that's what I would say to that. I'm going to let Valerie speak and talk to you about some really good stuff, and then we will open this up for questions and answer and try to make sure we cover everything. So thank you for being here.
Thanks. There are 1, 2, 3 seats up here. If anybody wants to come up and have a seat.
Valerie, will this be a similar presentation that was made at the seniors program at Redstone?
Yeah.
So
I thought I'd see some familiar
Yes,
faces.
yes.
Anyhow, I'm Valerie McDonald. I'm Pitt County Emergency Manager. I work for Sheriff Joe DeSalvo. And as Rob got to it, he got to it. But our best chance of getting through any disaster emergency in this valley is if our citizens are aware and prepared to take action. I don't want to sugarcoat this. Your expectations of what local government, your expectations will exceed our capabilities immediately. Basically, during high season, there's 40,000 people in this valley, and there's a couple hundred public safety people. So it's really crucial that you all take personal responsibility and have a plan. We'll get to you. Our public safety agencies are very professional, very well trained. But it may take several hours, it may take several days. So we really appreciate you being here to find out what you can do to be proactive. And we're not trying to scare you, we're just trying to empower you to get through it. So the first thing, be aware. So what do you have to do to be aware? Before I even get too far into it, I realize there are some limitations up here with cell service and internet and all that. But that said, please, everyone sign up for Pick and Alerts, our emergency alert notification system, pickanalert.org. I assume most of you, just from the talks I've done up here, have landlines. So you can get the information via landline, or if you're shopping in Carbondale, if you signed up for the text, you can get it on your cell phone, or you can get it via email. Just so you get the information. Weather radios, I keep hearing more about weather radios with what's going on this spring with the high runoff and if you want to get a flood warning, weather radios are the best option. Pay attention to your TV. And I talk about Pick and Alert, but we don't always get advanced warning for natural disasters. So this is where you again come into play. You need to be really alert, really on your toes. I mean, last summer it was all about fire danger. This season, right now, it's about flooding danger. Probably later in the season, we'll be back to being concerned about fire danger. So we need you to be paying attention to what's going on and have situational awareness, just so you can take action until we can get to you. If my grandmother asked me what's the best thing I could do, I would tell her to leave early. Do you really even need to wait till you get the Pick and Alert? I mean, you know what's going to happen once we pull that trigger. There's going to be gridlock. A lot of places in this valley are one way in and one way out. So if the hair on the back of your neck starts to stand up, you see the fire on the ridge, you don't have to wait for that Pick and Alert. Just go. That's the best advice I could give anyone. And I don't understand why this is, but in the valley, only 50% of the residents are signed up to receive Pick and Alerts, our emergency alert notification. Probably a third of them signed up during the Lake Christine fire. So I don't understand the low enrollment. I mean, that is something you can do to help yourself. And new this year, and some of you already heard this, we gave a presentation up here a couple months ago with the fire department. New this year with Pick and Alert, there's a special needs registry. So if you or a loved one or neighbors have special needs, meaning visual, you have hearing disabilities, cognitive disabilities, mobility, any kind of disabilities, probably a menu of 10 different things you can choose from. Identify yourself. So when we have an emergency, I or the ensign commander can call dispatch and say, run that list for us. We at least know where you are and what your need is. No guarantee, again, we can get you right away, but we will as soon as we can. And the more we know about you, the better our chances are of getting to you. And there's only 200 people signed up for that. I just don't get it. But hopefully, if you only hear one thing today, sign up to receive the emergency alert notifications. I'm going to sound a little preachy here, but I'm very passionate about it. Everybody needs to have an emergency plan. So ask yourself, what would you do if you picked up your phone, it was 2 in the morning, and they said evacuate immediately? What would you do? Do you have a plan? I can pretty much guarantee, I know we're not normal people, but if you're normal, you're going to freeze. Human nature is to freeze, stall out, wait for the situation to normalize. And that's just really poor option in any kind of emergency. I mean, I know we're here to talk about flooding, but you know, we all work in an all-hazard world too. So a lot of what I'm saying applies to whatever the emergency is. So get your support system together, be it your neighbors, your family, your friends, and talk about this stuff. Our best chance of getting through it is if you work together. You know, ask yourself, what would I do if I was in Carbondale? My kids or my pets or whatever are up in Redstone, they're evacuation orders. You can't get back up here. So what would your plan be? You really need to rely on your support system. Everyone needs to be aware of their evacuation routes, possible evacuation routes. I listened to a lot of the calls that came into dispatch centers during those fires in California, the Camp Fire in Paradise, and you know, immediately dispatch centers are overrun. You just need to go. You can't rely on public safety during those first crucial moments, which really could make a difference in your survival. So what are your likely evacuation routes? What's your family communication plan? Like I mentioned, if you're separated from your loved ones, you know, do you have meeting places? Do you have a phone, somebody to call, that type of thing? Pet plan, pets are family here, we all know that. You know, most importantly, practice this plan. I guarantee you won't be able to do it on the fly if you wait to do it the first time during an emergency. So practice it, create some muscle memory around it so you don't freeze. I've been asked specifically, I know I kind of went on my rant there, but I've been asked specifically to talk about emergency go bags, a go kit. We would like everyone ideally to have a 72-hour emergency kit. When you leave your house, a couple things. You don't know how long you're going to be gone. I mean, hopefully you have a plan and you can just move down valley and with your whoever or fly out of here, but you know, what do you need to take with you? For you, what is essential? What do you need? And everybody's what is essential is different. What can't you live without? And again, we're talking about flooding, but really the same principles apply whether it's fire or flooding or any other disaster. We're not immune to anything that happens in the real world. We've just been very fortunate. So as far as the to-go kit, there's a wealth of information on ready.gov/make-a-kit, and they're up here, there are handouts for every checklist. This is the best way to do it, just pick what's pertinent to you. There's also a list up here for your pets, what you might need. And Jenny copied some forms you can fill out for the family communication kit in English and Spanish. But I'll go through a couple of them for you. And also think about this. So we want you to have a 72-hour go kit in your house. So if you get that emergency call, you can just go on the fly. But what if you get that call when you're at work or you're out of town, you're up in Aspen or you're down valley? And what if you have medication that, like insulin dependent? I just heard a story where somebody was cut off because of a debris flow. They couldn't get back to their house. So in an ideal world, especially in the summer where we're kind of on hair trigger because of fire or flood, the best thing to do, and I know it sounds like overkill, but if you have special needs, it makes sense. You know, have one in your car and have one at work or someplace else that you spend a lot of time in, so you don't get caught unprepared. You know, there are a few universal essentials. You know, everyone needs food, everyone needs water. You know, they say 1 gallon a day per person. That's a lot of water if you've got a family, but you know, and in this valley, like, you know, we saw what happened with Lake Christine, and everybody wants to help, but if it's big enough and bad enough, it just might take us a while. Maybe won't be able to get food for you, but so we just want you to be self-sufficient so you can get through those first critical hours or days. I'll just read a few things I thought were really important, and then again, there are these checklists, and really think it through, what would you need? prescriptions, medications, glasses, if you have any medical equipment you can't live without. There are a lot of people who are dependent on electricity for their breathing apparatus and whatever, so you need a backup plan for that. Important documents, your insurance policies, your car titles, passports, mortgage docs, bank info. Ideally keep them in a waterproof container. Somebody the other day, they said they had like a 40-pound bag, get a bag on, a duffel bag on wheels. That's really helpful for a lot of people. And another thing I keep hearing from insurance agencies, take videos of your home and pictures. It really helps when you go for insurance claims. Okay, this is really a big one, and this is really, for me personally, hard. Cash. I mean, we're very vulnerable to power outages in this entire valley. I mean, last summer we came within an inch of losing power at the lake because of the Lake Christine fire for an extended time. I mean, it was going to be long if that happened. And need cash. ATM machines don't work, credit card machines don't work. Cash will rule. But why it's hard for me is because I keep going into my go bag and taking the cash out. And it's not really like rainy day money. It's supposed to be emergency money, which is fine if you put it back. But I'm challenged. I don't know how much is in there right now. So cash is important. First aid supplies, flashlight, batteries, personal hygiene items, toothbrushes and stuff like that, and clothes. I hate being cold, so I don't think I go anywhere ever without a down coat stuff somewhere. So I mean, even if you get into it, if you needed to go to a shelter, often they're freezing because of the air conditioning. And then if you have kids, I mean, again, Google any of this. There's these ready.gov has a plan and a checklist for anything. But if you have kids, how are you going to entertain them? At Lake Christine Fair, there are a lot of kids at Basalt High School. And I watched it, and it gets pretty tense. So if you have something, that would be great. And then there's the pet handout as well. That's really important. And I mean, I could ramble on about this for quite a while, but I'm going to stop here. And I'm sure when we get into questions, we're not into questions yet, but I'm sure you'll have specific questions. Be happy to answer them. So, CDOT?
I think you're here for questions or input. I'm good with that.
Dodge that bullet.
Thank you, Alex.
Sure.
Did you want to share any for the current data?
Yes, just quickly to summarize today's conditions. And again, we're comparing today to 1995 and 2011. Same day. So right now, the snow water equivalent, this is the water up on Schofield Pass in the snowpack, is 39.1 inches. On the same day in 1995, it was 59.8 inches. In 2011, 46.5 inches. So, we think, oh, this is a big year, we've got a lot of water, but we've got those 2 years with more water than what we have right now. Currently, the CFS today, here is 1,180 CFS, and that is actually quite low for this date. For instance, in 2011, the CFS was 2,700, almost twice as much. Now, going to the high water CFS, we're talking about 3,300. So I think if the CFS is getting close to 3,000, that's when we should really be alert to the possibility of some flooding. Normal high water will last possibly 2 weeks in the mid-2000s or a little above.
Question. On the times we've had the floods up here, were they related to debris getting caught somewhere, creating dams and causing the flooding? Or was it extremely high water flow rates?
It was extremely high water.
Okay.
But
so when we get over that 3,300, we're going to have flooding no matter what, whether we...
No, I'm not sure you're going to have flooding, but because we don't really have a record of what the CFS was Say, I don't know if anyone can remember 2011, when there was water right over here across the boulevard. I don't know what the CFS was.
Well, I just wondered if the debris issue.
Well, there'll be a lot of trees coming down.
That's a great question.
We did have a year, I don't remember what year it was, where it was damming up in Coal Creek, and that was creating issue, because they were worried it might all release at the same time. The man said he did it.
There was a storm in the 50s that wiped out all the bridges on the river. Has anybody analyzed whether that could possibly happen again, or are the bridges redesigned so that we wouldn't take out all the bridges?
I will say this, I don't think they've been redesigned to withstand all that, but I've learned in my career to never underestimate Mother Nature again, ever.
So the second question is,
So I won't say no.
if the bridge goes out, does the county have a plan for getting access back in as part of the emergency plan? Are there steps in place?
There are emergency plans for point rescue and getting people out if they need it.
So is that the county plan, or is that your?
Well, that would be us, and if something like that happened, that starts creating what we call an expanding incident, a larger incident, and we will spool up what's called a local incident management team, and then start doing whatever needed to happen, whether it's point rescue, that kind of stuff. Now, as far as getting a new bridge back in there,
Well,
that's a long-term deal.
I mean, so people might get stuck on the wrong side of the bridge for a long time.
For a while. That's why
What triggers calling the state army people in the National Guard?
size of the disaster.
Have you guys estimated what that would be for this area of the county? I mean, you just redid the master plan for emergency management. Was that brought up at all?
What Rob is talking about, we've got a county incident management team and emergency operations center, and the way it works is once we exceed our capabilities, we go to the state, and they activate the state emergency operations center, and if they can't do what we need, then we go to the feds. So there's a system in place, we would get what we need, but it wouldn't be immediate.
So there's no trigger point that the calls go out to the next level?
From my perspective, emergency management, I'm taking direction from the incident management team, so they would make that call. But believe me, we would be calling the state quickly, but they don't get here immediately, and that's why we keep stressing.
Well, were any lessons learned from the storm?
The 2013 floods?
No, not on this river basin, but
Yeah,
the Front Range.
Yeah, certainly. And part of that was, that was a 1,000-year flood. But,
Well, all it would take is a good storm, and all
I'm not
this
diminishing that.
would
could
turn
happen.
into a 1,000-year flood.
But
With the rates.
there are lessons learned from that. But a flooding event, right, that might take out bridges and stuff is a moving target. So to say that if it takes out 2 bridges, we're calling in the National Guard is not something you can really do because you don't know what's behind any 2 bridges. There might be 2 homes, and you don't need to call out the National Guard. There might be a subdivision with 60, and you do. So it's hard to say there is a single trigger point.
All right.
I don't know how you do that.
Well,
And
that should be somewhere in the plan. I mean, what triggers the next call?
There is.
Okay.
And it's, here's what it is. Like I said, we will spool up the local incident management team, right? And when we start seeing our capabilities are being overwhelmed, we pull the plug, go to the state. The same thing happens on fires. The Lake Christine fire happened on July 3rd. Many of us were part of the local incident management team. We were running the fire on the 4th, and it blew up, and we saw what was happening, and we went, holy mackerel, this is gonna exceed our capabilities. We started calling in the world. It takes a day or 2 for the world to get there, but a lot of them got there that night, and there's
So
that
they know
fire.
your number then?
And we know theirs.
There would be a disaster declaration,
Yeah.
that's what opens the door for funding.
Absolutely.
resources.
Is that a county level or
That's
the
a,
fire
that's a county
department?
and then state and then federal.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, is there any historic record of actual flooding along 133 on the highway at all being flooded out? Do you,
Uh,
anybody know?
Not that I know of, that the whole highway was, not that I know.
Or any parts of the highway being flooded?
Flooded, yeah, Hayes Creek,
Yeah.
it can flood over in those couple of spots that
Say
we know.
north of Redstone,
North of Redstone,
just curious.
yep.
Could you put the slide back that shows what's happening, like, over the last couple of weeks?
Sure.
Right there. Now, if you look at that May through the end of May, we have a lot lower water going down. And that's because it's been pretty cold and snowing up on the hill and so forth. And so we haven't had the runoff that we should have been having, as you say, the time. So how, and then now you can see over the last week, or 4 or 5 days, how it's jumped up. Do you feel that the warm weather is going to make that go significantly higher?
I do,
Very
and that's
quickly.
the reason we're having the meeting.
Do you know where the
Yes,
predicted?
I do.
There's
Yes,
a
I do.
website that actually has predicted flows, and it shows the Crystal River. It's linked off our website. If you go to roaringfork.org, there's a stream flows and snowpack. And it says on there, it basically predicts about a week and a half to 2 weeks out what you're gonna see as increases, and it's done on a state level.
Mhm.
No, that's our stream flow report. But it's not a site that we manage, but we just link it off our site for easy access. So if you're interested in what you think or what the experts think is gonna happen next, that's the best resource for it.
We've been meeting with the hydrologists, the national people and all that, basically as part of the Lake Christine issue for debris flows and all that, which doesn't affect us, thank God, but the information we've been getting is that the worry is, and nobody knows if this is gonna happen, this snowpack that's late and all that, if it really turns warm and we have 2 weeks of really hot weather, the snowpack can kind of come off at once, not literally, but it comes off fast. And that makes a big jump in the river, and then we can have this type of flooding. That's why we called for this meeting, and that's why we wanted to inform you that that's a potential thing to happen. So when you ask your question, you see it going up, and are we concerned about that? Yes, and that's why we decided to have this meeting, just to tell people what we're seeing.
And somebody in the audience brought it up about the avalanche debris. We've got unprecedented avalanche debris in these rivers, which can definitely cause dams to form and break. So we may see flooding in areas we haven't seen it before. And every Thursday, we have a regional call with the National Weather Service and Colorado Water Conservation Board. And, we're listening to the experts. That's why Rob called this meeting. It's worrisome because of how it hasn't come down yet. So somebody mentioned we're late, and it's weather dependent what's going to happen. But if it all gushes at once, we just want you to be prepared. And you can see the weather trend is definitely warmer finally.
We're not the only county, go ahead.
And so you had said we shouldn't wait until something happens. So is there a plan, rather than wait until there is an emergency situation for sandbags, or, I don't know what you do here if you think something is impending, but rather than do it then, is there a plan in place to do something ahead of time?
There's no big loads of sand and sandbags being staged that I know of. This is a good question.
Well, I mean, is there something that we can do, or you can do, the county can do, proactive, if it appears something is impending?
I think it's more, I think it's less proactive and a little more of an emergency response to something we think is going to happen quickly. Because I can't tell you where it's going to flood.
Well, you know where the flow points are.
I know historically where it's flooded, but I don't know where.
So the county's not gonna do any preventive maintenance or put up berms in Redstone to keep it flat?
Not that I know of.
That's
Yeah, I don't know of any of that, not from the county or the state. I don't think that's gonna happen. One thing, yes, sir.
This is for CDOT. Several years ago, both Cold Creek and the South Bridge had major debris underneath it. And there were some CDOT people there looking at it, and we were talking to them. They said they could not touch that unless they got approval from the Corps of Engineers. Is that still a rule in effect?
Pretty much. I mean, there are circumstances where
Yeah, if somebody's in danger, right.
If it's something that's not gonna cause a problem to the structure itself, then we have to get permission from the court engineer.
Who owns those two bridges? I thought it was the county. Because the county did work on the south.
Right, yeah,
The abutments.
yeah.
It probably is the county, but
The Redstone Bridge, the bridge coming into Redstone, the north and south entrance, those are county bridges.
Yeah, so-
Anything that's along Highway 133.
So he's saying call your county rep.
and we do have concern about debris. I've been trying to avoid being a doomsayer and just scaring the pants off everybody. But there is a concern about debris. And this is all over western Colorado. I don't know if you've all probably seen the news. Hinsdale County, they've got a reservoir that they're worried about and it's filling up, so they broke it. They opened it up, let it flow, because they were afraid it's gonna break and take out the whole town. And because of the amount of water that they have. I'm not saying we have it here, it's more snow in Hinsdale County. But do you remember in late March, early April, when all those avalanches were happening around here? I know that there are 7 chutes between Marble and Highway 133. All of them ran in those 2 days. All of them ran to the valley floor. All of them ran and created wider paths and took debris. Colt Creek has debris in it. If you don't believe me, go look. I'm not trying to fear monger. I'm saying that debris with high water can be an issue. That's awesome.
Just throw lights on.
Oh,
Throw lights on and put them out the door, there we go.
Yeah. So debris is a potential, just like high water is potential. And we just have to be aware of that.
Who's got red on?
Because,
Is there anyone that
Wearing
monitors
red.
the debris? Right outside the door.
Well, I can,
well, we do, and the county has, yes.
we meet often, we've been meeting for months. We've got a mud flood debris flow team, it's multi-jurisdictional, and all the public works people are involved in that team, from Garfield, Eagle, and Pekin. And they will protect critical infrastructure, so these bridges you're talking about and such.
And as water comes up, there'll be more of us out checking more regularly. 'Cause we start-
And they're watching the gauges, the river gauges, and
Yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah, we're all mesmerized by it. Yes, sir.
Well, I've seen, I don't know who's done it, but I've seen you've had a backhoe or something pulling the logs out in front of the culvert going underneath 133. So I think that somebody does address it,
Yes.
okay, without going through all kinds of
CDOT
rigmarole.
does that when they're protecting that critical infrastructure.
We also do get help from the sheriff too.
that's why she was standing up.
Night, and they'll be looking at the bridges. I pulled up in the middle of the night to go check my bridges, and all of a sudden the deputy said right there.
they do river checks, but that is so dangerous. We're trying to rely more on the gauges because the banks become so unstable. There's danger in the middle of the night, but we are out there looking and monitoring on the gauges.
Skip.
Is there any weather forecast information that might tell us when we can expect high water?
High water. Like from a rainstorm?
No, from the snow melt.
Do you have internet?
Do we have internet? We are in a transition with our internet here. It's almost, it's on the roof, it's not.
With these calls we do every week with weather service, and it's a forecast, it's a prediction, but they're saying around the 18th. But again, it's so weather dependent. This month, June, yeah, high water runoff, but again, it's a prediction. But they're the weather experts, so we just go by the information we get from the experts.
So they're predicting the high water mark around the 18th, who knows how long that'll run. But it all depends on, if it gets to the 85 every day, it might be sooner than miles a day.
All right, so I live in town, and I've been watching the river level at the steps in the park.
Yeah.
They're 6 inches.
Good gauge.
So usually by now it's up pretty near high water.
Yeah.
And right now, yesterday there was an increase in the flow, it's pretty significant. And it was just lapping at the bottom step of the 11 steps. Okay? The worst I've ever seen is 8 of those steps are underwater, maybe 9, which puts it close to the banks of the levee that's parked. So I walked through the park last night and I looked at that, and that's 4 feet higher than what you see right now at the park.
Yeah.
Which is a big deal. When that runs, you don't sleep very well. I looked at the condition of the banks of the park, and it's been built with rocks, and it's a pretty strong levee, but there's 2 areas that have been compromised over time, and the rocks aren't there, and it's soil. When you line up the angle of Coal Creek, it's right where those 2 compromised areas are. So it's not going to take a whole lot of water to erode those 2 holes in the levee. And so I look at the county and say, is there any way to put some rocks in there before it's too late?
They can bring it to their attention for sure.
Who's it?
The county commissioner or the county engineer?
So,
Write letter, emails,
So-
all
well,
files.
the letter and email can get lost. It needs to-
Go to the next meeting, go to the next meeting.
We can ask.
I mean, if the fire department said, hey, we looked at the levee and it's in bad shape, you probably get a higher level of response out of county.
You overestimate my influence. We will ask, and Valerie's here, and we'll make sure that that gets passed on.
Several years ago, there was a load of sand that was put up there by the park up there for people that needed it. Is there any plan to do that again?
Right now, it is not in the plan. Part of the reason is, the last couple times they did that, they did it here and did it up there, and notified everybody. We had landscapers come in the middle of the night, showing all the trucks, and it's gone. So the county's going, why are we doing that? So, go ahead. Yes,
We've never
thank you.
done that successfully, but if you go to pickettcounty.com, right on the front page of our website, there's a box you can click on to get information, and there's a list of some people that you can contact to get sand. You have to pay for it, but sand and bags if you wanted to go that route, but the county's not dumping a pile of sand.
Another option would be just go to Lowe's and have them deliver.
That's an option.
In the next 4
And who knows what's gonna happen if this thing starts getting ugly, so.
Yeah, along with the bridge compromise of the areas, because I walk the bridge every morning and every night with my dog. There's some low-lying areas of concern, not just the soil erosion, but there's a marble bench there that looks like, another 6 inches, it might flow away. And also Craig, the antique store, and then the villas kind of have some low-lying things, property, things that are, a wood stove, a wood burner, and just some things that look like they, tonight, could potentially flow down to the end of the boulevard. Is there any notification to second homeowners or people who might not be here currently that they could keep an eye on their own debris so it doesn't end up in the river?
That's a good question. I know we don't have that list of people. I don't know who are second homeowners and that kind of thing. I'm not sure. I don't know if the RCA or whatever might have better information than us, but I know we have maps and ownership thing, but we don't have everybody's name on it. So I'm not much help.
I mean, maybe even a social network post from your brilliant filmmaker here that could say, if you're not
That's
here,
a great idea.
if you're not here currently, call a neighbor, go check the riparian area near my floodplain, and make sure nothing's in the way or help me move it.
We can do that.
And I'll help Craig. Anybody know where Craig is? Craig is.
Those areas will be underwater.
Maybe we need to move some stuff there, like 2 feet. Don't you think? Absolutely. And if he needs help, then there again, that social network connection piece could maybe, And then if there is a need for sandbags, tell us where to get them and where to deliver them, and we can all do that very quickly versus each man for himself. Landscape companies don't benefit. Okay.
So, in the unlikely event of an evacuation, where do you go?
Depends on where.
So,
Flood north of,
is there, do we go to a high school?
Is there a plan?
Yeah, If you could access to the north, to Carbondale, we would set up an initial evacuation center at Roaring Fork High School. We've done it multiple times. We would do that. If we're cut off below Redstone, it's gonna be Paonia High School.
But wouldn't they have the same problem on the other side of the?
Possibly.
Never know.
Has the county communicated with them on that?
Through the American Red Cross, we've got shelter agreements with all
Oh,
schools.
I mean flooding on the other side of the pass.
Yes.
Jonathan and Delta,
We're
I
all,
don't know.
we're all part of the Northwest region, and we
Okay.
all communicate and coordinate constantly and help one another too.
One thing we do communicate consistently with county to county and agency to agency is when the road goes out somewhere, right, on the other side, we get that info pretty quick, so we can put that out that, yeah, it's closed at, 133 is closed at, mile
So
35.
in the event of these floods, would that go on the Pickton County roads if the road 133 is blocked going the other?
I think so,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
It already, well, it already does, it does.
I think so, right?
No,
it does. Does it?
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
that would be emergency information.
Yeah.
And I want to I meant to mention this
Well, he
earlier.
needs to know.
I get a lot of complaints about Pick an Alert, I get too much information. There's a menu, you can just get emergency alerts, or you can get community, I mean, you can pick and choose.
And for your
But
area.
if nothing else, sign up for the emergency alerts. And community, if I read all, I put the box that says Redstone.
Yeah, you don't have to get all the Aspen alerts. You can
Right,
just
you
get
don't want them.
this area and just the emergency alert, so it's pretty good.
If you know the water's gonna come over your banks, is sandbags the only idea, solution, or is there any less expensive kind of barrier that you could use?
Not that I know of. Sandbags about the bottom dollar thing you can do. Because otherwise it's backhoes and berms and stuff like that. That, as far as I know, I'm a fire chief, but not a builder. That's what I know. Yes, sir.
If you were to throw sandbags, and your neighbor doesn't have it, but the water comes over next door, is there effectively any difference, because it's going to be...
If the water makes it around your sandbag wall, yeah, you still have a problem. Well, no, I'm not being.
You'd stand back across the road or to the road all the way around your property, big
Yeah.
city. You would just do it along
It
the
would
road.
have to be something like that. So,
Does anyone remember 2011? What happened here?
Yes.
Okay.
The water went over the bank.
Yeah.
Came over the bank.
And where was that?
Right at the intersection of 133 and the Marble Road.
Okay.
I mean, I'm up high, it's not gonna affect me, but it's gonna affect my next door neighbor and a couple others that are there. Steve and those people all there.
And also in 11, BRB cabins really had a rough time.
yeah.
Okay.
They've done a bit of berm work since then,
Yeah.
but there's still some low spots there.
Sure.
Yeah,
They're pretty low.
there's still some really low spots there. Lisa?
I have a question, and not only with flooding, is there going to be alerts for kayakers and people getting into the river? And that's a big concern of mine, because I remember somebody got caught underneath the bridge, remember at...
What kind of alert?
Well, no, it was underneath the bridge at Ranch Acres. Came through and the water was high and got caught underneath there. My feeling is that, these young guys, it's just like avalanche awareness, is their river awareness out there to have the public not get out there, because then you guys have to risk, and it just makes a big concern for everybody. And then you have the Roaring Fork and whatever's going to be coming down there into the Colorado, but
It's a good question. We deal with it every year, and,
but with the
somebody
high
who's a
water
real-
and the debris,
we
it's
tell
even more
people
so.
about high water, debris, we'll
Yeah.
keep sending that information out,
Okay,
but we can't keep people off the river. We have no,
Somebody can make it illegal, though. Can't the county sheriff say it's illegal to go down the river
I
and?
think the sheriff may be able to do that, but that's,
Is that an emergency plan?
They can probably close,
They can close stretches of the river, I think.
I don't think.
Yeah, you close the whole river, come on.
Yeah,
So remember, Paul didn't look.
yes. I mean, people get in trouble when they don't scout. People who've run sections of the river before, this is going on water, they don't scout it, there's a new strainer, and they get in trouble. But I'm not sure what to do about that.
You know, it's a slippery slope. I mean, we're about to start pushing out a lot of information to the public just to create awareness. But then we have all this commercial rafting. So, it's such a slow messaging. Go on the river, you should be with the trained professional river guys to do safely. We don't tell people not to.
They tell people it's bypass and not slow.
Or shoot the fire.
And we still have fires.
That guy's a gentleman.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
What's the long-range forecast for the fires and stuff?
This is a great question, because we get back to what the summer is. Because this is a great question. You asked about what's the longer range forecast for the fire. And we've been blessed in that we've had kind of a wet spring and a cool spring, and that's great. It's been really, have you noticed your grass is growing a lot? Well, all the cheap grass is doing the same thing. And this is Colorado, and unless we get one of those weird wet years, it's gonna just get hot. That's what Colorado does. And by the end of June, first part of July, all that cheap grass is gonna be drying out, and we're all gonna be crying about wildfire. And we still, I've been asked this question a number of times recently, and it's a great question. We still live in western Colorado. We get a couple of weeks of dry weather, and the fuels are going to dry out. Everything is going to dry out, and we're going to have high fire danger. It may not be extreme like last year, but there are still a potential for wildfires. And so the stuff that Valerie was talking to you about being aware and having a go kit, it pertains to everything. And I think that's, again, bottom line, that's the best message I can give you, is let's all be aware of what's going on around us. If your gut ever, I don't care what it is, a winter storm, flood, mud, whatever, if you're looking at something and your gut says, man, I should go, don't argue with yourself. You're almost always right. I should go. I mean, we teach firefighters this. Hey, if we tell you to go, hey, put that out, you walk over and go, don't do it. Come back and tell me I'm a moron. You know, and tell me why. I truly believe that. Your little gut meter there is a great thing. And use it. Trust it.
Just a little, last July, they were predicting a stronger, earlier monsoon, and it never arrived. And that was the long-term forecast. So we've kind of learned, we don't put a lot of stock in the long-term forecast.
Yeah, the long-term
We just got to
forecast.
deal with the current forecast.
Yeah, and the long-term forecast, just to let you know, for this year is for a normal fire season. So that means a fire season in western Colorado.
But that's 600 fires in the state of Colorado.
Yeah, that's 600 to 800 fires in Colorado. That's just kind of an average year.
It's a great time to do your mitigation work since it's cooler weather.
That's another thing. If you have a property and you want advice and help with that, we gladly do it for free. Call us at the fire station. We'll come do a mitigation consultation with you around your property and help you out. We got great information as well on how to mitigate your property from wildfire and harden your home. And we're happy to do that. We've done dozens of them already this year, and don't hesitate to call. All right? Mike?
Well, you still running a Swiftwater rescue team?
Yes, sir. Yeah. We are.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question for Craig. What is it, mile marker 55 or 56 below Swiss Village, where the water got under the road that time, about 4 years, 5 years ago?
Yeah, it was at 57.
Yeah, what are you thinking about that issue?
Well, we put a lot of riprap in there and everything. We kind of try to watch and identify places where there might be a potential problem ahead of that. Right now, I haven't seen any places that are an actual potential problem or anything, but you get that water that comes around there, it can eat away at the road. So if you see like water that's not supposed to be where it's at, don't go.
Call somebody.
Drive into a hole.
Call somebody.
Call somebody, yeah, call Pickens County,
Is that like,
dispatch.
don't drive into the boulders and all
Pretty
this?
much, yeah.
I have a question for you. Those 3 big pine trees just above BRB that are every year getting lower and lower, who's responsible for those? Is that your?
You're talking the ones that are actually on the roadside?
Yeah, but they're kind of, they're getting over there.
Honestly, there's actually other trees that is actually in that river that are more of a concern to us than those right now. Those are on our radar though.
Okay.
But actually that area right through there, we actually did a lot of riprap through there and they're really not getting undermined a whole heck of a lot right through there. So we've got other trees in the river that we don't have the actual access to get to. So those are the ones we're more concerned with. We're gonna watch those. And if they do come down and get washed up on our bridge, we can hold off there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody.